Hello, Caleb. Hi, Akash. You guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Hi, Akash. Just gave you speaking abilities. Can you try saying something, making sure it works okay?
Yeah, hi David. Hi,
How
how
you
are
doing?
you doing?
I'm good.
How's the weather in Vancouver?
It's nice. Yeah, it's last week or so. It's been seasonably warm, but we had like November going on for a while. It was pretty chilly. All good now though.
That's good.
And,
I'm in
Caleb.
I'm in Toronto and here it's like today it's very hot over here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Toronto?
Sorry?
Where in Toronto? Which neighborhood or which area?
Have you heard about Etobicoke?
Etobicoke. I'm not familiar. I'm not that familiar with Toronto, so I probably shouldn't have asked the question. I was hoping to learn something though. Can you tell me
Yeah.
where that is?
Uh it's like part of Toronto. Like you must have heard about Mississauga.
Yes.
Yeah, so like Etobicoke is like between Mississauga and Toronto.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And Caleb, you're Alberta right now, or are you in BC? I forgot.
Uh, BC, yeah, I'm in Kelowna right now, Kelowna, BC. So I'm just about 3.5 hours to 4 hours down the road from you, and from Akash, I'm like a 5 hour flight, and all the way on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Right, right. We're on Canada anyway. A good digital nomad launching point and arrival point, I suppose. Um, Hopefully, we'll get a few more listeners, but this will be recorded so people can listen to it on their schedule. But please, like repost this if you can. I've got it on my profile. I saw Caleb, you did the same. So, gosh, appreciate it if you haven't already.
Yes,
Um,
I'll do that.
yeah, thank you. And basically, I mean, I think people are familiar with the term. When I was doing my summer exchange with the MBA program a couple years back now, I was at the Copenhagen Business School, and we could choose our own topic, what to write about with digital transformation or the new economy. And I chose digital nomadism. I was the only one in the class. Everyone had traveled, but people were surprisingly not that familiar with what a digital nomad is, having it as a lifestyle. And so the teacher, the professor, was uniquely inspired and interested. But that kind of I sort of fell into it, not in the tech space, which it's often like people have maybe they're doing a web design or something related to tech, and they're traveling around to the mecca of digital nomad. Um, that lifestyle is usually like Chiang Mai in Thailand or Bali, and that was of course spread pretty much everywhere. But I was in tourism, as some of you may know, in Japan and Burma or Myanmar and Vietnam. And I started to realize, like, what if I'm just slow to return back to Japan? What if I just kind of mosey on around Southeast Asia or something, spend a month or maybe 3 months, depending on the tour schedule. And I kind of became a digital nomad in that sense, and I liked it. But the pandemic kind of called things to a halt for a bit. But I'd like to talk about version 2.0. We've got, I think, like 58 countries now with digital nomad visas, and more coming. Yeah, and so it's a real thing. And I was talking to Caleb, I think a week or two ago, and he said, I'll let him kind of introduce his story a bit, but he brought up this really interesting concept that not only are we aliens when we travel to a new country, new culture, new environment, and all that, new language, but he said we're aliens full stop. And he has, I want to save it for him, but he has this really interesting concept on that that I think is great food for thought for all of us. So, Caleb, over to you. If you just like to explain, share a bit about your background, and feel free to pick up the thread that I dropped there.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, David, for having me on the space. It's been great to connect with you offline as well too, and just to get to build that rapport as fellow digital nomads and speak about this message. So, for those of you who don't know me, I've met Akash. I've interacted with him a few times. But for those listening to the space or coming on the space later, just in advance, I'll say I'm Caleb Matthews. I am a digital nomad. I am an owner of my own business in San Jose del Cabo, Mexico. I've actually moved to Mexico, and I'm just in the summers and springtime now in Canada. So I'm doing about 7 months down there, 5 months up here, back and forth. But I left my 9 to 5. I did 10 years in retail, working for telecom for one of the dealers of TELUS, one of the big three carriers up here in Canada, and was at the top of my game. So for those of you who've seen my pinned post on my wall, that's been kind of my introductionary business welcome. Here's me, here's Caleb post, and I left my 9 to 5 at the very top of my game as somebody who's in the top running for all the different awards, won all the awards, won a lot of the trips, and was really feeling okay. I'm not satisfied with just sitting behind a desk for the rest of my life. I want to push forward, push out there, and fulfill my dreams. Because one of the quotes from one of my favorite people in history, because I love bringing up history here, Martin Luther. He talks about conscience. And he talked about if we go against conscience, is neither right nor safe to go against your conscience. And so I couldn't stay at my work, not because it wasn't a good career opportunity, but because it would have gone against my conscience to be a cog in the system and not pursue my own dreams, passions, and giftings. So I felt like I was capped. I could only do to a certain degree what I could do in that 9 to 5 environment. I need to spread my wings a bit more. So I decided I wanted to move to Mexico. I wanted to move out of Canada and become a digital nomad, not because the weather is just great down there, but also just the flexibility and the freedom. Not to get into a long story here, but I was one of the ones that wasn't able to get the vaccine just because of medical reasons and reactions to that as a family. Me and my family, none of us did. And I wasn't able to travel for a few years because of the restrictions. And I was like, well, I'm never going to be put in that situation again. I'm going to have my options. So I decided that when everything started to open up, that I was going to have a plan B. And Mexico was part of that plan B. So I've got my residency down there. I have my plan B. I've got my business launched. I spent this last winter, the last 4 or 5 months of the winter time during the winter season, renovating my condo that I purchased down there. Became a homeowner in Mexico. Renovated the condo and turned it into my itinerant oasis, which is my business for digital nomads and business professionals and people who want to travel there for work, but also get a little bit of a getaway. So that's a little bit about myself, entrepreneurial background, homeschooled, all that good stuff. And I really wanted to go off on that tangent what David was talking about and just really lean into that, which is the whole part of being aliens. Not just when we're traveling to another country as a new person, but also that we are aliens in life itself. And so I'll explain a little bit about that. And of course, I want to hand the microphone back to David. But we are aliens in life itself because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's my perspective. That's my belief system, is that we are a spirit that has a mind, that has a body, and all of us have time. We've got oxygen in our lungs. We've got the day in front of us. We've got this moment right now, and we have this moment to be able to actually move forward. So that's just a great privilege. And none of us in this room, as I go back to David here, I want to say none of us in this room are greater or lesser with each other when it comes to time. We've been given the same 24/7, same 7 days a week, same minutes in the day, and we are all pilgrims, spiritual pilgrims, trying to find our way in this world because we only have a short time here, which is beautiful. It's wonderful, but part of being a digital nomad and this ephemeral alienship, that's going to be a tongue twister for me, is knowing that we have a limited time here. We need to make the most of it. So anyhow, I'll push it back to you, David.
Appreciate that, Caleb. And just the words ethereal and ephemeral. I never knew. I use them kind of interchangeably. So I like the fact that you blended them because that's kind of how I use them in my mind. But yeah, really, really great point. There's a lot to touch on there. Maybe I'll go back to digital nomadism, and we can kind of weave in the ephemeral alienship as well. But just top like level, why would someone want to be a digital nomad? Like what are the advantages? What is it that they're hoping to experience? I'll just kind of ask, like Akash, do you want to kind of give us your thoughts on this? Not sure. I thought I gave you. I'm not sure if you chose to be a listener again, or if I thought I gave you speaking privileges. Well, Caleb, I guess you can field that question for now. I'm not sure if Akash just stepped away for a moment.
Sure, I'll field the question. Maybe
Okay.
it's because I was noticing that with Akash, he went from microphone then back to, oh, there he comes again.
Oh,
All right,
good.
Akash, go ahead.
Talking about being a digital nomad. So first of all, like I am not a digital nomad yet. Like I'm trying to be one. I have just started this online journey like 6 months ago, and I think like within I have a plan for like in 1 year I'll be one. So for me, uh, the main thing which matters is like freedom. I want to be like I don't want to work in a business or a job which requires me to be physically present over there. So that's the main thing which I am looking forward. And with digital nomad, being a digital nomad, I feel like that's the most important thing which we get. And I have made friends on Twitter who are like from India, US, and UK. They are like successful business owners right now, and they are like traveling all around the places and making like a lot of money. And I feel like, okay, this is exactly what I'm working towards. And so yeah, this is a definition, whole definition which I have for me as a being a digital nomad.
Yeah, thanks, Akash. Do you have anything to add to that, Caleb?
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Akash. I always like hearing a unique sprinkling of perspective. This is why I like tag teaming with gentlemen like David and listening to what you're having to say. And of course, Anirba, as he just came into the room here as well. What to add to that is being a digital nomad really means that you are operating off of a different playbook than the regular system. It really is what you make it to be, and many people have a different broad definition of what a nomad is based on their passion or based on their business or their brand of what they're trying to release. But being a digital nomad is having the flexibility to take your business on the road, on the wheels, and there really is no limitations or structure or formula. It's the way that you work with your brand and your business because you're your own boss. So I would just say that being a digital nomad is that you're your own boss, you're your own accountability partner, and yeah, I'd say that it's just becoming self-sovereign.
A lot of really great points there, both. Um, I feel that it's more honest, and by that I mean kind of aligned with who we are in this environment because you're responsible for what you do. You can't really complain or blame someone else. Like it's entirely up to you. And I think we are trying to find a good ratio of energy spent and resources gained, a good ratio between discovery and stability, a good ratio between security and flexibility or freedom, if you will. And so we're exploring ways in which the probability of those ratios skewing in our favor might be higher. And of course, there's going to be risk. I can tell you from personal experience, I was a digital nomad, more or less, when the pandemic started. And that was a wake up call because it's all fun and games until you're kind of outside of a system. So it's almost like you pop out of the system and you get a new dimensional perspective. Like let's say the regular system of having like a consistent home and all that stability of going to your 9 to 5 every day. You can kind of predict and plan on top of that. Sometimes you can leapfrog when you check out of the system and is strategic, you take a strategic risk and then pop back in somewhere else. Like, how did you reinvent yourself in like a year or whatever? And kind of to Caleb's earlier point, you change the game somewhat, but then you get caught out. And if you're caught out when you're outside of the system, that can be scary. You know, that can be you have your like feet kind of knocked out from under you. But once again, I think it's very honest because it shows you kind of what you're made of. You have to get really scrappy, really fast. And this is where I come from with networking and what I'm trying to do with a global network I kind of fell into it in tourism, but also just added to that even more voraciously in business school and post pandemic. But I think with like a network, you have so many more options. You know, if you go to Cabo San Lucas or like Baja California or Toronto or Chiang Mai or Tokyo or wherever, you have people, like you have contacts. You're not starting anew entirely. Some of your skill points carry over into not just hopefully your persona is consistent, but your identity in that environment kind of you can carry some resources. You have some local cash, if you will. So anyway, those are kind of some of my thoughts. I could go on for a while, but I'll let someone else chat a bit. Akash, does any of that do you have any questions based on that? Any comments? Well, feel free if you're just stepping away. Caleb, I'll just pass the mic back over to you for now.
Sure. And I also want to give a shout out and a welcome to Barbara. I gave her an invitation here to the room today and told her about, I think, yesterday too. So Barbara, don't be shy if you want to request the microphone as well too. We'd love to hear from you as well on this digital nomadism, specifically what we're talking about the first half of this, and of course the ephemeral alienship. I'll still get over that one with my tongue. So
yes,
we'll get it. We'll get it on. We'll get it on there. But I know Barbara's got some. She's got some good value to share as well too. I've hopped into some of her spaces too. But just to briefly touch on, you talked about reinventing yourself, David.
yeah.
So I'm just going to leave this comment here, as I guess Barbara's just requested the mic. But as digital nomads, one thing is essential for us to be successful is the art of reinventing ourselves. So we have to master that art to do that over and over again. And the survival happens when you adapt. So anyways, I'll just leave it at that and I will concede the floor. Yeah.
Thanks, Caleb. Yeah, welcome, Barbara. Would you like to add anything?
Oh, yeah, I would just say thank you, Caleb, for inviting me to the space. And sorry I bumped out the first time around. I was inside of the mall and I started to hear you guys. I'm like, oh yeah, this will be great. I put in my earbuds and there was nothing going on. So I don't know. I think the mall like does something to spaces. Sometimes I can hear in there and sometimes I can't. So anyways, I sent Caleb a message. I didn't want to be rude and just like leave without saying why I couldn't hear. But yeah, I'm super excited to learn about digital nomadism and uh, ephemeral alienship. That is a mouthful, and I did not take the time to look up that word, but I'm very interested to find out what that word means and how that plays into, I guess, getting to know people and growing accounts here on Spaces or on
Well,
X. I mean, yeah.
thank you, Barbara. Lovely to have you. I didn't know that about the mall, but I wouldn't put it past them. Keep you focused on your shopping, not on communicating with people that aren't there. Um, so ephemeral, that one's on me. I came across it when I was in Japan, learning about Japanese culture, and it's something that comes up in Japanese culture, like the focus on the fleeting kind of nature of life. Things happen for an instant and they're gone forever, and so appreciate it. And there can be a wistfulness or a sadness in that, but there can also be a beauty in that. There's going to be many more beautiful, unique experiences in your future, but the ones behind you, they're the ones behind you. You can revisit them outside of time in your memory and have new perspectives and stuff. I think there is this constant thread, but in some sense, you won't be 20 again. In some sense, you won't see that person again or whatever, have that job again. I remember the first time I went to Japan, and this could be anywhere. It's just for me, it was Japan. It was amazing. There's so much that was unique and different from my experience. And I was with some friends, and that was a long time ago. That was almost 20 years ago. I can't believe it. And I still keep in touch with those friends. And we've talked about it. We can never recapture that feeling again. We've gone back and we've appreciated it. It's still worth it. It's still different. It's different in some ways, but you can never go back to the first time of doing something. And that's something that Japan really highlights for me with the way that they celebrate holidays. You might be aware of their celebration of the cherry blossoms. They call it Hanami. And the cherry blossoms are very fragile. It can be kind of a gray and dreary winter, less color on the trees. And then all of a sudden there's this pop of pink, whitish pink. all throughout, and it flows in the breeze with the bright blue spring skies if you're lucky. But there could be a strong wind or a rain or something, and they're gone. You don't have any. So there is something, it's a gift, just like this life. It's a gift. Might sound kind of um, like melancholic or dark, but like in some sense, I I think none of us deserve to be alive. It's a gift, and I feel it's healthy to remind yourself. I try to remind myself anyway, like each meal, each moment. I'm not saying I do this all the time, but it's special. And it's something I took away from I'm happy that I took away from my time in Japan. So I try to use that word ephemeral, just as I, keep it alive, keep that thought alive. So hopefully, um, sorry about the difficulty pronouncing it, but hopefully that the essence of it comes across.
No, that is super cool. Thank you for explaining that. And talk about synchronicity. My youngest actually just finished up her first year in college and did sign up for a month in Japan. So she'll be home for a week and then she's going to be heading out for a whole month. So, do you have any advice that I could give to her? She will be going with like 29 other students from her I guess group. She's a psychology and neuroscience major at this point. So we're still not sure what she's going to end up doing. I'm kind of hoping she stays with the neuroscience, and she's been talking a lot about psychology, which makes me nervous, but I'm, you know, I trust that whatever is going to open up for her will by the time she graduates and all of that. But anyways, yeah, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that you were also in Japan. I just
Mm.
wanted to chime in and ask if you had any advice. I don't want to derail the space, just a couple
No,
of
it's
tips
fine,
would be great.
Barbara. There's a lot of overlap there. Um, so I was a tour guide. I don't know if that came across or if you saw it in my profile or something, but I was a tour guide in Japan for a number of years. And my tours were usually 2 weeks, go all around the country, small groups, about 14 people from all over the world. And uh, as you may know, when you book a tour, there's some anticipation. You're setting aside some capital. You're requesting time off. You're having fun seeing like where you want to go, what you want to do. You're seeing postcard images or Instagram or whatever. And I want to see Fuji from this place at this time to get this picture. And you're kind of limiting your growth. You're limiting your life. And there's so much that we don't know. Like I can't really overstate that. And I discovered this by accident. I'm glad that I discovered it, but I discovered it on that first trip to Japan that I mentioned to you. I wanted, and I promise I'm getting to your answer, Barbara. I wanted to pick up a British accent because I thought that would make me sound smarter. So I wanted to go to London. And friends from uni said, you can always go to London, but when can you go to Japan? Like, we're going to Japan, come with us. And I was like, yeah, you got a point. So I went, but I had no plan. Like, I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to do this. I didn't have time. So I just went, I just followed them. So I went to a new place with no plan. And I argue that that's like, in some ways, the best way to see it because I was present in the moment and I was experiencing what happened because I wasn't thinking, oh, I've only got this much time before this thing closes or I need to get here. Um, and it was amazing. And so I recommended to my clients, you came and, it's great. We'll try to see all the things on your list and all that. But I deliberately planned a couple of days of just dead time, nothing. Like on these days, there's absolutely nothing going on. And I encourage you to just go out. And I guarantee you that those will be the best days of the entire tour. And with not once did anyone disagree at the end of the tour. And so I have evidence now to suggest that there's something to that. And that's what I'd recommend to you, Barbara, is to just pass on. Build in some dead space. Build in a couple of, she's there a month. I say build in at least one day a week where there's just nothing, absolutely nothing, and just go wander. Go wander the back streets, go in a hole in the wall, like a shop or a restaurant. Strike up a broken Japanese, broken English conversation. See the warmth in strangers' eyes. Have those unexpected experiences. Time is a funny thing. When you're rushing to do something, it seems like there's never enough of it. But if you just go and embrace, it's like almost endless. And those moments have so much more weight when you're not forcing them. So that's a real easy recommendation that I'd start with, Barbara.
Oh, that is super cool. Thank you. And the name of the city is Kyoto. I guess that's the name of the tour. She is going with 29 other people, which did make me feel like extra safe that she's not just, going there by herself or, you know, um, yeah, I mean, anyways, I have heard it's a very safe country, so I'm happy that um, yeah, that you mentioned, hey, just take a day. She'll probably grab some friends, and I'm not sure if every day is planned out. I should actually just sit and.
Yeah, I think you went mute there for a sec. Did you want to finish that thought, Barbara?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll chat with her a bit about what plans they have set up, because I've done other educational tours with her. We went to Spain with her junior class, and that was pretty amazing. Um, but in that, we did have a plan almost every day. So, and it does feel like that, exactly what you described. If it's planned out, you just feel like you're going from one place to the next, and then you're in a bus, and then you're in a different city. So, but yeah, I totally agree with you. I think taking some time just to absorb the, I guess, environment and the culture would be wise. So, but thank you. I appreciate your
Pleasure. Feel
insights.
free to connect with me, Barbara. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding safety. Probably one of the safest countries, particularly for visitors. And so yeah, definitely no problem there. But feel free. I mean, if you want to follow up or she has some questions, I'm happy to help out. To get us back into the concept of my pleasure, Barbara. Digital nomadism. There's some of that there as well. Like, what are what are the scams to be aware of? What are the benefits, the opportunities? Like, just kind of knowing the lay of the land. Um, Caleb, do you want to bring us back down to like some of the things to look out for? Some of the things to be aware of when you leave your environment and arrive in a foreign one.
Sure, I'll touch on that. And if you don't mind, I'd like to expound on something first you said as well about just going to hole in the walls and just disconnecting from the busyness. I think that that's really, really important because as human beings, but especially in the Western culture, and David, I know that you know this because you've been in both the East and the West. The Western's culture especially is obsessed with a structure, a schedule, having everything mapped out. And some of the most glorious things that can happen as a digital nomad and going into a new environment, things to look out for in a positive way, is finding the place and the environments and those moments to be able to disconnect from the busyness and really take time for yourself to connect with the environment, with the culture, with people, to really feel the essence of what's there. And so, to expound upon your question you asked me about what things to look out for, is when you're going into a new culture, it will be, and I know this is an overused phrase, but it will be a culture shock. But that's in a good way as well too, not just in a bad way. And in a good way is that the culture is going to have some positive attributes that maybe that your previous didn't have, weren't as strong as. I'll give you an example from Mexico, and for those who are familiar with Mexico. Mexico, their favorite word that I became really familiar with very quickly is mañana, 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 mañana. When it came to dealing with contractors for renovating my place to get it all ready for my business, but also when it comes to just, okay, resting and being chill, the positive part that their culture has, the Mexican culture has, is that they aren't in a hurry to do anything. And so, on one hand, that's bad for getting things done quickly in business in some ways. On the other hand, it's good because I came from a 9 to 5 culture for 10 years where it's constantly driven, 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 and then you drive yourself to the point where you don't even like what you're doing anymore. So I would say as you're shifting to a new culture, be aware that the pace, that's probably my first thing that I would say. The pace is going to be different in the newer culture and the culture you're going to than where you came from, to be aware of that and to be aware that the culture that you're coming to may not necessarily operate on the pace that you operate in, but to try to find a happy medium in the middle. So at the same time, you can't completely throw out what you've learned within your culture because there are some good things as well. But at the same time, you can't come in there with a colonial mindset and impose everything on your culture to expect them to do things the way that you want to do them as well. So anyways, that's my answer to that question, David.
Thank you, Caleb. Yeah, really, really great point. I think we have a sunk cost fallacy generally that we struggle against. We want to capture more value out of our invested resources. So in our case, we've invested resources into learning English, learning that culture, how to work within that framework, and then we go somewhere else for discovery. Sometimes that can be an impediment. Sometimes it can help you. Sometimes you have to synthesize it with the new culture, and sometimes you have to just boot up an app, like I called Japanese David, and just kind of become this organic entity in order to more smoothly navigate your adopted culture. Something else to keep in mind, I think, is that everything is a trade-off. And sometimes we think we're just going to gain, but I think it's one of the laws of thermodynamics. But there's always an exchange, and sometimes that's not evident right away. But when you mention culture shock, I think that reverse culture shock is very insidious and in some cases more profound. I don't know if that's only because it surprises you. But there was a gentleman I spoke to whose roommate in university was the son of a Canadian diplomat to China, and they trained to not make any faux pas or anything like that, and get ready for their ambassador to China, get ready for their move. I'm not sure how long they go for, but a few years, let's say. And he said, and this might be an exaggeration, but I think largely it holds true. He said like 75%, so the majority of their training was not on acclimating to your new culture, but on repatriatizing. Here's my word that's difficult: repatriating to your original culture, because you expect to go back to what was, but we live in fluid chaos. So like that's what I meant about the ephemeral. It's always gone. So once you leave, like your memory of Canada or wherever you're leaving from remains the same in like a save state. And you're like, oh, I can't wait to go back and have this experience that I left. But that's gone. Like, so you made a decision and now you have to live with that decision. Now I would make that decision 1,000 times over because it led me here, but it does come at a cost. And it's weird when you can no longer go home, where home is the more foreign place. That's a weird thing to kind of come to terms with. And most expats that I've spoken with that have been abroad for more than a few years all seem to agree. Where it kind of there's, of course, you have connections and memories and stuff, but it's almost like you're in a ghost dimension where you can like see it, you just can't touch it. So I thought that was interesting. Kash, do you want to chime in at all? I want to give you time to share your thoughts if you'd like to, but no pressure if you don't. I'll take a few seconds of silence to mean you're chilling. All right, feel free to let us know. Caleb, do you have anything you'd like to share or add to?
Actually, yeah. Noble Ron here in the room as well too. I know Noble. I've listened to him speak in a few spaces as well and interacted with him. One of the most genuine sons of encouragement on here on this platform, and I know he's got a wealth of wisdom to share. He might be having some connection issues because I saw him go in and out a few times. But Noble, I encourage you to give a microphone request because I know what you have to share is very lovely as well too. So I just wanted to start with that and just no.
He
Oh,
has
there
the
we go.
power.
He's got the microphone. There we go.
Hi, Noble.
Hello,
Welcome.
everyone. Hello, David. And I see I've listened a little bit to the space and find it interesting. I can't say anything about long distance travel being part of my entrepreneurship, but I'm taken back to when I was especially in one particular field of the insurance industry where I was on a commissions-based structure. And like Caleb said about having hold on one second. Having the that's not too loud. Finding out after working so hard that you don't like what you do anymore, where it becomes a drudgery and you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. You're working in that tunnel and you're trying to build this a passive income, and it just you do everything you can, but it's a great pursuit. I always admire those that are willing to go beyond what the normality, what normal is, and fight for it, because there's glory in that. Because not only are you going to be blessed yourself, but you're going to bless others. And that's the one thing that I always kept in mind, is that when I get to that point, I can bless others. It's not just about me. And the thing about it is, if you're working with other people within that environment, even though you're a sole proprietor or doing things yourself for yourself, you get a lot of strength from that, and you build some of the best relationships and the best clients you could ever have. So I have a deep love and respect for the pursuit or entrepreneurship. I desire it. I love it. Actually, the fact that you can go beyond what normal is, which is 9 to 5, and building something that will last and maybe even be generational. You'll leave a legacy, a financial legacy that will bless others after you're gone, and that's what I love. So love the topic, love the panel and the speakers, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Noble. It's really beautiful. Yeah, so I guess anytime you are an alien, you are an outsider, and that can happen in the schoolyard of your hometown. And of course, it's probably not to be unexpected when you look different and don't know the language, you can't read or write in the adopted country as well. We all go through that period for various reasons at different points of time. What might be some like what's the relationship with that experience? What are some things that we are meant to take away from that experience, Caleb?
Taken away from the experience of being an alien, I definitely I do want to expound on that because this is something you and I talked about I think a week or two ago, and hence part of the title, which I think is really a good thing to touch on here. But we, I'm of the firm belief, and I know every person here in this room has a different, unique interpretation of what spirituality means to them. So I want to be sensitive to that because everyone is coming from a different place, which is wonderful. But from my perspective, I believe firmly that we are spiritual beings going through this life having a human experience, that this body that we're in is temporary, and that we have a race to run, and we are aliens in the sense where nationality, I'm just going to go beyond nationality for a minute. It doesn't matter whether you're from Canada, the United States, Europe, South America, wherever, whatever flag that your original country's from, we are all aliens in the sense that we are passing through this world on a tourist trip, on a long tourist guide trip, to use David's form or occupation. We are traveling through this world on a long trip. This isn't the final destination. Just like in Star Trek, there are realms. There's a place that we're heading to, and I think one of the ancient forefathers of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, Abraham, talks about in the New Testament, not to get religious or anything, but just the text here. It says that he was looking for a city whose builder and maker was God. He was looking for another country, not just this one. And so I was on a podcast recently with a friend in Texas. I was telling David about this, and he asked me a question about, kept on saying, that's interesting how you keep saying that you're not at home or you're foreigner when it comes to being in Mexico or Canada. And I said, that's correct. And he's like, well, what do you mean? You've got, residency in Mexico and you got citizenship in Canada. I said, well, I don't really feel at home anywhere. And he was like, well, that's really a profound statement. I said, no, I don't, because I don't put my stock in this world. Like, this is a passing and a fleeting thing. And we can't fully put our investment here. As you're saying, David, we have to build for future generations. I think Noble touched on that as well, too. And part of that is coming to grips with and being okay with that we are all aliens somewhere. Like Coldplay, their new album, I think they have like a T-shirt on. I love listening to Coldplay, by the way, huge Coldplay fan. And it says on their T-shirts that they sell at their concerts that everybody is an alien somewhere. So I think it's just a good thing to keep in mind, that to be sensitive, and also whatever culture you're going into, wherever you are, to be encouraged and to know that you're an alien, but also the people that you're encountering are too. We're all on this journey of life together, figuring things out. And as long as we can do that with love in our hearts, and we can do that with a steadfast focus, then we're in a good place. So that's what I wanted to say there for now.
Yeah, well said. I think the goal is to not be an alien to yourself, and the rest is just the journey. What about going back to some of the practical aspects of digital nomadism? I mentioned that ratio that we're trying to strike, perhaps. What about work-life balance? Is there a better or a promise of a better work-life balance? by leaving your home environment and seeking a new experience abroad. Akash, are you able to speak? Because you mentioned before that you were thinking about becoming a digital nomad. Is that something that speaks to you?
Yes, hi. Sorry for the about like previous thing. I was doing something and I missed that.
No
So,
worries.
uh, with the work-life balance thing, to be honest, like right now, what I think is like, see, I am 26 right now, and to be honest, I am not looking for any work life balance thing. I'm not focusing on that. I am just focused on like to be financially free in the next 5 to 7 years. So for that, and I can think of the work life balancing after that. So right now I don't have any such thing in mind. I'm just focused on how to grow myself, how hard can I work, and how can I like be more efficient at what I'm doing. So growth is like the only focus for me right now. So yeah, like, but as I grow and have a family in the future, at that time, at that point of time, I would definitely be more into work life balancing, because that things matters then. But right now I don't have any other responsibilities apart from being like myself. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that.
I love it. So you're looking at the time. So at this time, you're a builder. You're building your empire, and you pivot to a slightly different role or priorities later on. That makes a lot of sense. So if you're thinking about digital nomadism now, would it be more for a greater return on your investment of time?
Yes, definitely. Right now, I do have an option to like go back to a 9 to 5, but the reason why I have chosen this path, like uh, initially this was not my plan. Like I got laid off last year in October, and that's when I discovered all these things. So I just took this shot. I thought like, okay, I am 26 right now. Even if I fail after trying for 3 years, I can still go back to a 9 to 5. But this thing, like I am absolutely valuing my time on investment, because if I don't invest right now on the right things, maybe I won't get this opportunity back in the future. So yes.
Yeah, very wise. Um, So networking, community, we're social creatures. Having some sort of shared experience is important. Meeting others, and having some community when you're abroad, I think, is very important. Um, and that can be tough depending on your language ability, depending on all sorts of things. Um, Caleb, I know that this is something that you're probably thinking of with the way that you've set yourself up down there. Could you share any thoughts on kind of establishing, maintaining a community and the importance of that when you go abroad?
Sure. I'd love to expound on that. So I think it's important to know that when you're traveling abroad and you're establishing a community, that your process and your journey and on how that works is going to be different than the person over in X, Y, or Z country or the person you see on YouTube. So there is no formula to how to build a community. It's going to be, first of all, unique to how you do things and how your makeup is involving and encountering the community. So to use my example in Mexico, I went down there this past fall, really my first full winter down there since moving away from Canada. And most of the time, my community or my social connection outside of my family, because my parents got a place down there as well too, which is great. So they're very nearby. But interacting with the workers and with the guards in the complex and the community, and with people who are the business owners in the restaurants and the places that I frequented, that was really how I started building that community. Was really immersing myself with people I know that I was going to interact with every day, as well as on the golf course as well too. A part of doing my job is I was able to work twice a week at volunteering as a marshal at a golf course, and in exchange for my services for 6 hours a day for 2 days, I got to play unlimited golf, which was great. So that was one of the ways that I got to interact with the community and build that. was through just different hobbies, but also really trying to learn the language. And so I would say that whatever culture you're going to, a new culture, even if it's only a few words and you're not like, don't have goals to be fluent to like enough completely in the language, that's okay. But at least trying to learn part of the language, learning the way that the locals tick, is honoring to the culture and in a way where you can kind of make that ground to where you build that authenticity and connection. Because if you're planning to travel abroad, be a resident of a country abroad, or spend significant time there, the locals have seen lots of tourists come and go, and tourism is a good thing. It's a strong thing, especially in San Jose del Cabo and Cabo San Lucas. But if you want to really spend more time, then in my opinion, in order to be endeared towards the hearts and the minds of the people, you need to find something to be able to meet them where they're at, which is immersing yourself in things that are they're passionate about as well. Not losing your own passions, but that just starts with the small steps. So I would say that don't be discouraged if you're looking over your left or right shoulder at some other person on YouTube or on social media, or somebody who's just killing it within a short period of time and building community. It doesn't happen overnight. Like my first winter down there, like I know some business people in the restaurants and the golf course and the community and within the place as far as within my complex. But I had so many more ideas before the winter began. I thought I was going to have much more time to socialize or build that. And that it just wasn't that time because I was putting my roots down and really getting established in the business. So don't be discouraged. The timetable when you're going into a different culture can take a different turn than what you originally planned. So just be flexible. Blessed are the flexible, for they shall adapt. And when they shall adapt, they shall thrive. So that's what I have to say about that.
That segues perfectly into the points that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned there, Caleb. With entrepreneurship, I think adaptability and resilience are some of the top skills you can have. And actually, going back to Charles Darwin's On the Origin of the Species, there's a phrase that gets kind of misinterpreted, survival of the fittest. And I think many people saw that to be like strong, like strength, but it's actually, it meant more like adaptable, like fittest for the environment, like who can adapt to the environment. And you mentioned that building community is going to look different for everyone, depending on like them and where they're coming from. And I think I'd like to touch on in a little bit how you can become more adaptable, or what adaptability looks like, what some of the hurdles might be. But before I explore that, I'd also like to just touch on something else you said, that when you're abroad. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. I was going down the adaptability, and here I am stuck not being adaptable. So I guess we'll go with that, and then it'll come with me. So what do you think might be the hurdle, Caleb, between adapting to a new culture? What do you think because you chose to go there, so there's a desire, but what do you think surprises people?
That's a good question. I think what can be the barrier or the enemy of adaptability and of growth in a different culture is coming to the table with preconceived notions that everything around you when you go to a new culture is just going to be the way that you've always had it from the culture that you came from. And that goes back into the whole realm of colonialism that we've seen in history. Usually things don't go well when a colonial mindset is brought into a culture, among the natives especially. I think that preconceived mindset, the mindset is key. So there are things, of course, that make up your makeup, David, my makeup, Barbara's makeup, Noble Ron's makeup, that are part of our DNA as entrepreneurs, as nomads, as business people, businessmen, businesswomen, that are core pillars that, of course, that make us tick. And that's great. But there are areas that I think we need to be flexible on how the world operates and how culture operates, that can ultimately lead us to success if we are flexible. If we aren't, then it's going to be hard for us. Like the concept of time, like I said before, if I coming to Mexico expecting that my concept of time is going to be how everything works down there, then it's going to be a lot of pain. But at the same time, I'll just say it from the perspective of the locals. If the locals think that, when they're trying to attract new businessmen, businesswomen to their culture, that those coming in wanting to invest as digital nomads are just going to accept everything that they are about, then I think that that's wrong thinking as well. So I think we need to meet in the middle. And so to answer your question, David, I think some of the barriers, mindset, and thinking that everything that we've learned is just going to be the way it is in a new culture. I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks and things that can stop adaptability, is just thinking that everything's just going to be the same when we come to a new culture. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, totally. It sounds kind of counterintuitive because it's like, I want new experiences. I'm going to go to a new place. And yet it creeps up on us. We want some of the creature comforts. And sometimes we just didn't realize what we valued until it's gone. It's like, oh, I want this thing. I can't have it. And then that can creep up on you a little bit when you're, let's say, tired or stressed or something like that. And you're like surprised. There's an adjustment. You're a living organism adapting to a larger and a new living organism. I remembered what I was going to say, by the way, when you said looking over your left shoulder or right shoulder and just seeing other people doing better than you in whatever metric, and don't be discouraged about that. And I fully agree with that. And what's interesting is you don't know what you know until you put yourself in multiple environments. Like, you might have a wealth of knowledge that's not being used now because you've not put yourself in an environment where you could really capitalize, for lack of a better word, that skill set. And I've seen it a number of times where you look at, because we do compare. I mean, for better or worse, I think there can be a good point to comparison, and like anything, it can go too far. But don't be discouraged, and don't underestimate also your competition or just other people. Like, if it's really surprising sometimes someone that you see is behind, and then all of a sudden they leapfrog because they just, going back to Akash, it looks like he hopped off, but he's got unique kind of goals now, but they might pivot later, and you might have skills now that aren't being showcased, and then all of a sudden there's an opportunity to showcase them. People are like, whoa, where did this come from? No idea that you were that competitive, or you had this ability. But yeah, great points, Caleb, about adapting. So is there anything that you'd like to touch on, Caleb, going back to the idea of this kind of physical existence that we know it now being our tourist ticket, our small group tour, 8 billion or so in our small group, going through the 21st century, the first half of the 21st century together. And we're adapting to a digital, in some cases, perhaps even a digital consciousness, if the artificial general intelligence narrative holds true. What are your thoughts on this tourist experience?
On this tourist experience, I love that. Great segue. I love talking about digital nomadism, and I love talking about business. I love talking about entrepreneurship. But my engine is the spiritual, and that comes from the tourist trip that we are on, because that's birthed out of the spiritual. And I want to go back to what you were saying a little bit earlier there on just knowing what time that you're in and not looking over the left or right shoulder, because I think it ties into that in a way. In the scriptures, there is a tribe called the sons of Issachar. And there are 12 tribes of Israel, and one of them is called the sons of Issachar. And the sons of Issachar, they knew their ability, their gifting, you could call it, they knew the times and the seasons. And I think as people, we need to have that ability, like the sons and daughters of Issachar. We need to know the times and the seasons that we're in, to be able to adapt to that and be adaptable as digital nomads, to be adaptable as people. And knowing that each step that we go through, each process that we go through, no matter what environment that we're in, no matter what our journey brings to us along this tourist trip, that each moment is a lesson in itself. And I think that as a culture, there's a danger in looking towards the finish line, and we're very results oriented. Like this platform on X and on LinkedIn and all these platforms, it's very results oriented. And I'm not saying results aren't important. Hence, we have business, we've got goals, we've got those things, those are great. But if we're living just for results, then we're really going to miss the in-between, which is the process. And the process of between here and the results is what the journey and this tour, this long trip is about on the earth, because we can miss so much. I can miss so much. You can miss so much. Barbara can miss so much. Noble Ron can miss so much. We can miss so much if we're looking at the finish line and we are bypassing the process. One of my spiritual teachers who passed on many years ago, his admonishment to me and his caution, his encouragement is do not forget to enjoy the fragrances and the aroma of the flowers along the way in each season of your life. Don't get caught up in the results of what the garden's going to look like when you haven't even enjoyed sitting out there and enjoying the fragrance of the aroma of those plants and those flowers there in the backyard. And so it got me thinking, that's amazing. And so I was part of this small group, and when my teacher was there, he was doing different spiritual words and readings, they call them, and encouragement to the group. And one of the guys in our group was tremendously talented. I'll never forget this. This was like 14 or 15 years ago. Talented artist, talented businessman, talented everything. And so his turn came from when my spiritual teacher was looking at him, just giving him a word of encouragement or everything. And he looked at him and he said, "You've lost the awe. You need to restore the awe, the childlike wonder of life itself." And it wasn't like a total, okay, you're awful rebuke because you're not doing this. Is more or less, you got to posture your heart back to the main thing, which is the main thing. It's not about results. It's not about likes. This is just my perspective here, so we can take it or leave it. Likes, impressions, comments, any of those things, those are all just byproducts of the main thing. And the main thing is making an impact. The main thing is living out the purpose from which we are called to on this world, in this world system, as people who are living spiritual beings as a human experience with our higher power, with God, with our connection. And the main thing is making an impact in our life and making an impact in other people's lives. I think of the parable of the talents. I'll just close my thought on this and hand it back to you. But with the parable of the talents, you had one that was given 5 talents, 3 talents, and 1 talent. And the ones that were blessed by the master and given more talents with their gifting is because they worked their talents. They weren't complacent. They weren't sitting in the comfort zone in their existence. They were actually developing those talents. And the one person that hid their talent was the one that it was taken away from him because he was afraid of what could happen. Therefore, he didn't move on it. And so that is what our life is about. We have these many talents and giftings and abilities, and we're walking through this timeline as spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's not about the results. This is just my perspective here, but it's not about the results as much as it is about the process that gets to those results, because that's what develops character, and character develops resilience, and resilience develops an impact that you'll have on your life and future generations. So that's what I think.
Well said. There's also those unknown unknowns that you won't know. You can read every book that exists. You could take every class that exists, get every certificate, every diploma, and you still wouldn't know a visible fraction of the whole pie chart of the possible knowledge in the universe, because you are a unique super galaxy, supercomputer, whatever analogy you like, of experiences and like synthesized kind of experiences and understandings as well that are like real time connecting like chemistry with your environment, outside stimuli, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just, yeah, you really need to just put yourself out there. And I say that as much to myself as I do anyone else. I'm the type of person that was nervous on stage speaking to an audience because I was thinking more about what do they think about me. But once I pivoted that and thought about what do I give to them? What's my role here, my purpose here? Like you mentioned, Caleb, having a purpose makes you a little bit unshakable because you're more, it's a growth mindset. It goes back to entrepreneurship. Put yourself out there and fail fast, fail often, have those learnings. I learned more in 1 year as an entrepreneur than 2 years in the MBA. It's not even comparable. Yeah, fully agree there. As we're bringing this to a close, are there any questions that anyone has, or any last comments that you'd like to say before we close this out? Feel free to request to speak if you don't have a speaking. I see a couple of people are listening. That's fine. Barbara Noble, thank you so much for contributing. And of course, Caleb, a real pleasure. We should do this again. Thank you for your perspectives, and everyone just enjoy the journey. See you out there. Okay. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.